Hello, participants. This is Tina Harmon, and I'm coming to you to help you to understand how to analyze miscues. First, we have to understand that we are looking to ask ourselves three different questions when we're analyzing. Question number one is, does it sound right? Question number two, does it make sense? And question number three, are there any visual similarities? Now, they might be asked in any given order, but we're going to try to stay in order of meaning, structural, and visual cues. So I have went ahead and analyzed Roberto's reading record for you, and we'll go through the process of what I actually have done to analyze his reading record. So remember that when you are analyzing the miscue analysis, you want to mark first the error. So we are taking a look at Roberto's errors. And by each line, I mark a 1 by each error that Roberto has made. Or you might mark a 2. But over in the error column, we mark M, S, and V, which will allow us to have a great visual about the patterns of miscue analysis that Roberto is using. So we first want to make sure that we understand that you can only analyze the error up to the point at which it occurs. You cannot use any information after the error. So for example, Kate had a loose tooth. The so I can only use what was already prior to the actual error. So I'm going to ask myself, does this make sense? The yes. So I circled the M for meaning. Does it sound right? Yes. It you can use the for to start a sentence. And are there any visual similarities? Yes, the H and the E are visual similarities here, which Fountas and Pinnell counts whether there's a beginning, ending, or middle similarity. They count this as, yes, there are visual similarities. So let's move to the next error. Kate had a loose tooth. The tooth was very little. So I'm asking myself, does that make sense? Yes. So I'm circling the M. Does it sound right? Her tooth was very little. Yes. Are there any visual similarities? Yes. So I circle M, S, and V. So let's move to the next set of errors. Kate played with her tooth, and so if the child didn't pay any attention to this punctuation, it may sound correct to say Kate played with her tooth and. So does it make sense? Yes. Structurally, can we say and here? Yes, if the child is actually not paying attention to punctuation. Are there any visual similarities? No. So we would mark the M and the S. So, and it didn't come, so it didn't. So does it sound right? Yes. Does it make sense? Are there any visual similarities? Yes. So we mark all three, the M, the S, and the V. So as we look at the next set of errors, we go to the beginning of this sentence. I was. Does that make sense? Yes. Does it sound right? Yes. Are there any visual similarities? Yes. So we mark M, S, and V. So we move to the next one. I want my tooth to can. Does it make very much sense? Structurally, doesn't sound right. But are there any visual similarities? Yes. So we mark the V. And so on this page, we total up all the errors. We total up all the self-corrects. We total up the miscue analysis. So he has 4 visual cues that he uses. 5 visual cues that he uses, 5 structural cues, and 4 meaning cues that he uses on page 1. and Roberto is 90% accurate, and his self-correct ratio is 1 to 6, and his fluency is a 1 on this. So this is his instructional level. So let's move to page 2, the next page, and we're going to start with the next sentence. Your tooth will fall out, said Mom. Kate wiggle. So the only information we can use is Kate wiggle. Does that make sense? Yes. Structurally, does it sound right? Kate wiggle. Yes, up until this point it does. Are there any visual similarities? Yes. So that is how you analyze errors. So let's move into self-corrects. The way in which to analyze self-corrects, if we first have to determine what made the student first make the error. So we're going to mark both M, S, and V in the error column, as well as M, S, and V in the self-correct column. And once we get to the self-correct column, we're going to be making a hypothesis about the one or two things that most likely sent the reader back to correct themselves. So let's take a look at Kate brushed her teeth and, okay, so does that make sense? Yes. Structurally, can you put and there? Yes. Are there any visual similarities? Yes. They both start with A. So now let's try to hypothesize as to why the reader went back. Kate brushed her teeth and brushed. So we can actually use this information because the reader went back on the reread and had already read brushed for breakfast. So Kate brushed her teeth and brushed. So to the reader, this may not have sounded right, and they may have noticed that and was too short and that there were more letters in the word after. So they may have used visual cueing system to say that doesn't look right. So when we look at error number 2, Kate brushed her teeth and brushed. So does that make sense? Yes. Structurally, can you put that there? Yes. Are there any visual similarities? Yes. So what made the reader go back and change? So Kate brushed her teeth after brushed. So that doesn't sound right. After breakfast. So structurally, the reader may have said, that doesn't make sense. Kate brushed her teeth and brushed. That doesn't really make sense. Okay. So she wanted her teeth. She wanted her teeth. So we look at the next error. Does that make sense? She wanted her teeth, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't analyze that one. I'm sorry. We're at can. So forgive me on this. There was a mistake, but two can out. So does that make sense? No. Two can. Does it sound right? No. Are there any visual similarities? Yes. So we marked the V. So what made the reader go back was it didn't make sense and it didn't sound right. So we went for the meaning instead. It really didn't make sense. So for she wanted her teeth and self-corrected, there are visual similarities, and there are as well, does make sense and it does sound right. So the reader may have gone back because thinking about the meaning of the text, the loose tooth, may have gone back to self-correct because teeth and tooth did not visually look similar and didn't sound right to them. So, and there we count up the errors. 1, 3, 3, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. So I'm going to pause the DVD And then I'm going to have you continue with Roberto on your own, and then we'll come back and see how you do.